Hello there, Vic Benedict here. We're playing Gears 5, and this is my insane difficulty guide and walkthrough. We're currently on Act 3-3. It is entitled Some Assembly Required. So, you may notice that I've got the Nasher. I did have to restart this mission from scratch because I was doing some loading of different save files, and when I tried to come back to the main one that I had, where I had the torque bow and the Lancer, I was not able to retrieve that, and it was no big deal actually, because I will show you where the Lancer GL relic is. It's going to be pretty much just a little bit off the track of where we're going, which is the cosmonaut training facility. Okay, so this next area is a mandatory area, so you just need to follow your waypoint. And do you remember in Act 3-1 when we did a fight where I was lamenting how, it would be better if we had a rifle? Well, we're going to the same place. Do you see that water tower up there? We're going back right up there, but over to the left. And in the space of a frame, you are going to, in the space of one video frame, you are going to see that I have the long shot, because I'm going to go over there and do that fight off camera just so I can pick that up, because the first fight on this mission is really a good fight if you can have the long shot. So it's telling me that this is a new location and that I haven't done it, but I'm not sure why it's doing that. It's kind of strange. Maybe it just refreshes itself, I'm not sure. But we're not going to the water tower, but if you head over here, there's a weapon over here that I haven't spoke about. So this weapon over here is the relic for the Lancer GL, right over here. And the single frame that I said where I was going to acquire the long shot is right over here as I get onto the skiff. Just realized that I went back to the fight near the water tower and acquired that long shot. So I didn't include that fight, obviously, because we've already done it. So the Lancer GL relic fires a grenade directly in front of you, like a traditional grenade launcher, rather than the overhead mortar-like blasts that the Lancer GL, the plain version, does. So which is better? It's all down to preference. I kind of like them both actually, but I will be premiering it over here in a moment. And back there was one section where there was some crashed Condor scraps or something over there, but I didn't see anything good over there, so I'm not going to do that. I am, though, going to go pick up this component over here, or at least have Jack pick it up. It's a 1, which is disappointing, but we got to keep collecting those, because I do want to make sure that I point them out for folks. All right, so as we come up here, I would highly recommend that you have the long shot for this fight, and that you also start with the shock trap. It's a bit of a surprise, my telling you that you should start something with the shock trap. And also there's a torque bow, do you remember, by the water pump area? So if you do want that, you can put that in your arsenal. Over to the left is a component box, but I think the game doesn't want me to have a certain amount, since I've perhaps got all the ones in this zone or something, or either I got it earlier, I'm not sure. But it doesn't really make sense to me personally. But anyway, when you come on down here, we are going to get another component. This might be a pretty good one. I don't think it's a 5, is it? But it's a 3. Regardless, when you come over here, what you do is you approach the reception desk over here that's boarded up, and then you turn around and then point for Jack to go into this vent over there. And since this takes so long of waiting, I did edit. I trimmed out the excess piece of just waiting, because it's a big waiting game. Now on this first fight that's coming up, you can start the fight by using shock traps, but if you die, when you respawn, you are not going to have those shock traps staying there because they don't save like that. So if you really do like to use the shock traps in that way, restart from the previous checkpoint rather than the most current one, and you'll just be thrown back a little bit and you won't lose too much progress, and you can keep redoing it to your heart's delight if you want to. Now, why did I not get the safe in the previous area? It's because it has nothing for me. I think if you're lower on components, you'd be able to find one. But yeah, there's one over there. But do you see the area that I'm aiming at now? I'm going to place 2 shock traps over here for the 2 enemies that spawn over here at the beginning of the fight. Those 2 enemies being the Bastion, which is going to be neutralized and killed by the traps, and then a Scion. What is he using? I think it's a mulcher, so he's pretty dangerous. But shock traps are definitely the way to go on the Bastions. And then over here, if you want a bolt hawk, you can switch out. But do you see the checkpoint over here? That's the reason that you can't restart and have those shock traps over there. So it is a part that you can die on for sure. So it's not that bad, but I find it frustrating when you're in sequences like this and you can't aim over your left shoulder. But it is very good that we were able to deal the Bastion enough damage to get him out of the way, so he's not protecting anybody else. But there we have it. The Scion is dead. And then we're going to be going down the length of this long corridor, and this is the long corridor that the long shot really helps out in. And I'm a little perturbed that they removed the third-person corner camera trick on this game. I think they did it in the 4th game too. But what it is if you're out of cover and you're trying to peek your gun around the cover and stay in cover at the same time, they prohibit you from doing that. Do you see the trunk or the whatever I just pulled down for cover over there? We haven't been able to do anything like that since the very first mission of the game. So it's just one of those things that I'm thinking, why were we not doing this a little bit more frequently throughout the game? Why weren't there other things that we can interact with in the environment? You know, it would have been nice. But it's like the game remembers that they did this all of a sudden and then they put it in again, you know, without any apologies. Now, you might say you are wrong about the third-person cover trick. It is alive and well in this game. Well, I'm not saying that it's completely dead. You can do it on certain occasions, but by and large, the freedom of having that particular trick where it works flawlessly like an Uncharted 1, it's gone. It's definitely gone. There's a sense of a mandatory feeling of having to go in cover to do that. So they want you in cover. They want you in cover. They don't want you to have an advantage like that. So I disagree with that. I do. But I understand why, perhaps, you know, that maybe they wanted to even out the playing field for the enemy AI. I'm not sure. But anyway, when you come down here, the thing you need to interact with is that. Have Jack go up there. He's going to lift this one. The other one that he can lift leads to some sort of a, I think it falls and it doesn't work. But I'm going to equip my pulse just to show you the location of some rejects over here. And this cannot be a stealth section because when you raise this thing, they get alerted. So I'm just going to show you that they're over there, just sitting there or standing. And if you throw a grenade over there, you can down them if you want to. And when they fall like that, they're in I'm going to blow up soon mode. So by the time that happens, you should have this thing just coming up and you're not going to be in too much danger. But what the fuck was that? Shit, I almost flew back in my seat a little bit. Shit, that was like a piece of the robots flying around. And I know I say robots and I should say DBs, but robots is just kind of easy for me to say. But anyway, if we can have this thing come down now, there we go. Now, don't forget to pick up this component down here. This is a 5er, so you definitely don't want to miss something like this. This chapter's not too bad, actually, for fights. It's pretty good. There's the Marxa. Sometimes I do use the Marxa. I just really like how it used to be with that scope. And now they took it out. Feels really neutered. But anyway, come on up here, and we're going to be doing a brief section with some more rejects. And oh, we've got a kind of an interesting and fun fight with a centrifuge in a room reminiscent of a Dead Space game, more like the first and second game, because those two were the good ones. But there is a Lancer GL over here if you want it, and if you also want to have 2 Lancer GLs, one of those being the relic, you can have that. So don't forget to pick up this one. I don't understand why that one was 3, and then the one that was kind of out of the way earlier before we entered the actual cosmonaut facility, that was only a 1. I think the one we just got should have been a fucking 1, because it's right there in plain sight. You know, but I'm not sure who's holding what over here. I mainly care about what I'm holding, but that doesn't extend too much to my other characters unless I'm using them for mules, as I sometimes do. Now, the next encounter is against DBs, and if you're not aware of my stance on DBs, or sorry, the rejects, I don't find the rejects fun to fight. I find them more tolerable to engage with if I'm engaging with them in a stealth capacity. And believe it or not, this can be done in a stealth capacity down here, so you don't have to worry about anything. But this centrifuge is going to kill some of the DBs. There's glass in the way of us right now, so we can't shoot them, but you are going to get a checkpoint right before you slide down into that area. And every time the centrifuge spins past their area, they do get alerted a little bit, but as long as they don't see you, they won't completely rouse / aggro. So just slide on down here. If you do have them aggroed, you can just reset and they'll return to their normal selves. But it's pretty simple. Just don't be worried about that yellow light that appears on them, because they're just hearing something, but they're not quite sure of what it is, and they won't get you. Okay, so this is a huge room, and it's going to have a large fight to deal with after. And I wish there were a few more interesting pickups over here, but as it stands, there's not much. On these last 2 enemies, I always found that I had to take out this one for the second to last kill, and then the following one for the last kill. If I did it the opposite way, I would get found. So not too particular, and you can, just take care of them that way. I don't like them. I think they're a joke of an enemy. They have too much HP, and it's mainly because they're not fun to fight for me that I don't like them. But we have this fight coming up over here now, and whether you think it's fun or not, that's going to be debatable for you. It is kind of difficult, but just realize, folks, when you're doing this, there's only 3 positions or areas that they come out of. The one we're at now, oh, it's funny too when you're aiming or throwing your grenade or anything. If the centrifuge is in your line of doing something, it'll it'll prevent whatever you're doing, and it'll bounce off. So you saw one of my rockets bounce off that centrifuge, did you not? But did you also see the grenade GL relic being used right there? How many did I use? I used 3 rounds. There's one ammo box for explosives over here, but it's a medium one, and it only gives you 2. You also can't iframe through the centrifuge with the stim, so don't try to push your luck in that respect. But like I was saying, though, there's 3 areas that they spawn at, and they always give you a warning before. And this is one of the sections where you definitely would think that your narrator would be using shock traps to anticipate arrival times for enemies and dealing with them like that. But I just found that it wasn't too necessary, and it's difficult to plant those shock traps on surfaces that you're not on the same level with. So, or if you're mainly below the level of what you're aiming at, because then Jack can't. The game has a difficult time interpreting what you want to do. So it often will just throw it in a really weird place, and you'll get frustrated. But this is the second place that they come out of. They come right over there. So if you do want to place shock traps in front of the doors and stuff like that, that would be helpful. But you might also think that enemies would be really tricky on this part, and like try to go around and flank you and get in different places that will cause you a big inconvenience. But they actually do hold their ground. Oh shit, another Scion. I like it. So what's my opinion? Do I like it? Do I like the GL relic that fires it straight forward, or the other one that does those mortar blast like attacks? I think they're both good, but the relic definitely has an advantage, because if you're in a room that has a low roof or a ceiling on it, the explosive attack won't work, because obviously it's a mortar attack, and it's not possible to use it at that point because there's a conflict with the ceiling, so you won't be able to use it. But if you've got a horizontal attack, there's no problem on that score. So definitely, I think my preference would go over to the relic one of the GL. So I'll keep it as long as I can, and I'll probably be using it on the snatchers. So I like this room. It's a terrific set piece and stuff like that. The music is pretty good. It's a little somber and a little bit too plaintive for my tastes, even though I do really like soft, melancholy music quite a bit. But for me, it just didn't fit this room. I don't know why, but when the Snatcher appears, the game is going to have him get killed. Look at that frame rate. That was like 10 frames per second. The game just does it for you. So I do appreciate that, because the whole situation was coming to a big head, and I do like things that occur naturally like that in a fight. And after you're done, take a look around the room and see if there's anything that you like, but be careful. The game doesn't immediately checkpoint after the fight, so don't accidentally reset or do anything like do a melee attack near any of those fire furnaces, because it'll instantly blow you up. And that actually did happen to me, because I was just, I don't know, I was just seeing if it would happen, and of course it happened, and I had to redo that whole fight over again. So I just wanted to make sure that you don't have that problem unless you want it. But anyway, let us now move forward to the next part of the mission. I do want to definitely warn you too that we have some difficult fights coming up that definitely make for a significant amount of challenge for you. So what I would recommend is that you choose the ability that you want. Of course, I've got the shock trap on because that's usually just my default. I'm comfortable seeing that along with the stim. As for weapons, the long shot is, I cannot tell you how helpful it is. It's just indispensable is, you know, the only word that I can think of. But you don't have to immediately slide down here. When you start up there, you can, if you want to, you can just do some sniping up there if you choose to. The difficult part about this is that you have got the popper juvies coming at you, ready to pop and explode right near you. So it's a good idea to have the stim so that you can take a heal real quick and immune yourself from damage. The passive abilities that I've got going now, you should also have those as well. So when you're getting kills and headshots, you will see your abilities speeding up their regeneration a little bit. So just take note of that. Those are in the passive abilities. And by this time, you should definitely have everything upgraded. We do have the barrier to get. That will be the last upgrade, but we should have, you know, probably about around 50 components to do that one, and then we'll get our achievement. But this is, oh Jesus, this guy is submerged in the geometry over there. But this is an area where you will have a bastion to fight over here. I can't decide which is harder, this or the next fight, but you have to start dealing with the with the turret guys. So that means wait for the stim to be available and then shoot at the enemy. I remarked several times in just the privacy of my room that when I got killed, I just said to myself, you can't even fucking aim. It's like Uncharted on Brutal. It really is difficult to survive that sort of heavy barrage of fire. So you really need to use the stim if you're not feeling that you can quickly get them killed, you know, with the aim. So you've got to do that really quickly. Yeah, but that is something that happens. I think after you kill 4 enemies, you'll hear the Bastion spawning, and he will be shielding these enemies over here for their defense. And they've all got hammer burst pretty much. So there's going to be one Scion, and he's the one that the Bastion was protecting, pretty sure. It looks like we've got everything done. Yeah, pretty much. So the next part, though, is reminiscent of the fight that we did on the frozen lake in the previous act, because you have a bunch of nonsense just kicking off and having to put your head on a swivel constantly and make sure that you're not getting snuck up on. Because if you get snuck up on in a game like this and this difficulty, you're not likely to live. This is kind of funny over here, actually. It's, I mean, look what I'm perfectly fine using a knife on that son of a bitch. God, I could have died so hard right there. But what's going to happen up here is that there are 2 paths that enemies can travel up over here. So you really need to secure each path so that you're covered from the rear. What that means is that you're going to have to put some shock traps down, as well as do a little bit of grenade tagging. Some people just don't do that, and I appreciate that. And if you're just not that type of player and you do it differently, that's completely fine. In fact, if you had a moment, why don't you share your views, and so we can see how you're doing it as well. I'm just more comfortable knowing that this guy is he's like trying to go down into hell right there. But that should be it as we attempt now to leave the training facility. But this does get definitely hard because of poppers and trying to hit bastions that are constantly, moving around, even though it's not fast that they're traveling, it's still difficult to see them because they have a propensity to just well, it's not really a propensity of the enemy exactly, but it's just that with all the sand formations coming up, even if you shoot them down, it's very common that they will get obscured by those, and then you have to reposition yourself, and you've got to be very aware of what's going on over here. But one thing that I did find over here is that if you favor a particular lane, that's the lane that the majority of the enemies will come up. So you might not get snuck up on very much at all. So that is good. Now, if you rewind some of these, when I'm getting headshots over here, it should speed up my recharging of the other skills. So if you didn't know that, see how it took a little chunk off because it's giving me the passive bonus of getting a headshot. Those are really good too. But in a few moments after this, I am going to see what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to wait to place another shock trap. Look how fucking long it takes. Jeez. So it really is good to get those passive abilities, because I want to place another one over here. And I really don't want the poppers to set it off. I'd rather a horn winder came up, an elite grenadier, and he got killed by it. But once you hear the sound of the bastions, they're going to be protecting two boomer scions, and they're an enemy that is very easy to get killed by, because they're just completely reckless with how they shoot, and it really takes a toll on you. So I decided to place a couple of grenades over here, but one of these scions didn't try to come up here. So the majority of the enemies will just they hunker down and stay in place, and that they don't charge you. This game actually is pretty fair and easy about enemies not charging you and coming right up to you and trying to slash at you and kill you. They keep their distance, you keep your distance, and there's an interplay of of bullets, and whoever doesn't get hit as much is going to be the victor there. So having the torque bow would really be helpful over here to destroy those bastions, because even though bastions are hard to hit and kill with the torque bow from a long way away, these bastions are pretty close to you at all times, because this field isn't very far. Bastions will be shadowing the scions. So here he is. Okay, so this is one of them, and they just have a lot of life. So you have to be ready to make a stand over here and just get them out of the picture. See, now he traveled about halfway up that lane. We got him. We do have another one still shielded by the bastion. Now you might say, why didn't you redirect that other enemy through the hijack ability? Well, I just don't use it that much, but I will try to do a decent spread of different things so that everybody can see what they might prefer if you haven't played this game. And at some point it is beneficial to, if you just can't see where people are, you really need to use the pulse so you get an idea of who exactly is where. Because at the present time, I know that there has to be, quite a few enemies, at least half a dozen enemies, and also the boomer. But he's not coming up, so he is put down his horn, and he is not winding it anymore. And if you're curious, like, what in fucking God's name is this guy saying? Winding his goddamn horn? Like, Who says that? What the fuck does that mean? Are you just so stupid that you say that? Actually, no. A lot of poetry from the early days they would have words that would rhyme with the word wind, but it was pronounced wind. And what I do is I'm referencing one of the last lines in Stephen King's The Gunslinger, where he's going to, as he is approaching the Dark Tower, he's going to take out his horn, which is the horn of an animal, and he's going to, as he's approaching the Dark Tower, he's going to put wind into it, put his breath into it, and blow and make a sound to announce his presence. And the gunslinger, they don't move very fast. They just walk at a normal pace. So that's why I say enemies will come up to you at a normal pace, winding their horn, which of course translates to, in this game, shooting at you and throwing grenades and shooting boom shots at you, and trying to just fuck you over royally. But that is what it is. And I think this might be the last enemy. We're also getting increased damage on pulsed enemies from an upgrade. So I didn't think that would come into play too much, and it really doesn't, but it is nice to know that we're doing a little bit more of having a little bit more of an impact on these enemies. But we've got one guy, I think this might be the last guy, just kind of freaking out, and then we can move on. I wish you could interact with some of the objects in this area, like that fan blade. That would be interesting. Definitely always be shooting those formations and those black formations there, because if they contact an enemy after they fall, the enemy is likely to get killed. And back off. You have to just back off, because that was definitely a close call. I was sticking my nose way too far out over there, and I did take a hit that almost did kill me right there, so I've got to be careful. Oh, the turrets. Good idea to get on them, or bad idea? I just stay away from them. I don't trust them. But if you want to just experiment, the checkpoint's pretty decent, actually. So I mean, it's actually really good now. It's probably one of the best checkpoints in the game right there. So you have no excuse to survey a lot of techniques that you might want to incorporate into your gameplay later on. This chapter 2 is definitely winding down, so we're not going to have too much left to do. And before you know it, this chapter will be over. The next chapter of Act 3 is a boss fight, and it's not too long either. So before we know it, we'll be on the final act. So what exactly do we have next? I'm trying to remember. Well, we just finished the training facility, and now we're heading back to the skiff, and then from there we have to return back to the airport strip, and then you're gonna be getting another ability, which is the final ability called Barrier. And Barrier puts up a transparent piece of shielding in front of you, and it blocks bullets, and when you upgrade it, it can deflect bullets too. So it's actually one of the stronger abilities. And before we actually leave this area, I wanted to mention that there is a fight with some robots down and to the left over there, and you can also get a component, but when I looked down there and searched the area, I had already got the component, so there was no reason to go over there except to fight, and I didn't feel like fighting those enemies right there. But fortunately, we don't have any more weather disturbances to deal with. When we come back this way, we will be going to the old city and doing a three count pouncer fight. And then I'm just very, very glad to be finished with this level because I don't like the structure of it, and it's a little bit too bad, but I'm not gonna begrudge it too much. I'm just saying that I have a certain preference, and most folks do too. But you also are going to be backtracking through the rocket hangar at some point, and then there is a somewhat of a boss fight if you want to consider it. It's not that bad though, so you don't need to worry too excessively. But what we're doing is bringing back to Baird this this piece of equipment that's quite heavy, and I'm not sure what exactly it is. I thought for a second it was a resonator, but that was the thing that you had in the first game. So I possibly could have picked a closer spot to get off of the sled, but I think it's fine. Okay, so we have some stuff over here for the next fight. If you have the shock ability, that would probably be better. The freeze. Am I saying every word except for what it's actually called? I think it's called, well, you know the one that Flash. Flash is what it's called? Yeah, Flash. So we're going to have a close quarters fight, and I'm not going to be messing with any shock traps or anything like that. We're going to be coming back this way. But for right now, you're going to be heading on in here and waiting on JD to meet up with you because he's the one carrying the piece of equipment. And then this is going to be your next checkpoint, so make sure you have what you want. Again, I would recommend the stim and the flash. Definitely. Yeah, flash is good because there's going to be a tripod enemy too. Or what's it called? A brute. Sorry, a brute enemy. And the first wave just consists of some of the lower class enemies and one of you have one heavier sort of enemy, and cover throughout this next fight is a little scarce, but I will say this much for the fight: it's an enjoyable one. Anyway, here's the barrier ability. You are going to have to use it one time just to let Baird shut up about, asking you to use it. This game does what a lot of games does, when you're asked to search an environment and to take stock of things and look around, your teammates constantly tell you to come back, that you're taking up their time, and they try to hurry you. That's the point at which I go into the settings and turn the character dialogue volume all the way down. It's fucking obnoxious. But you might remember this part from an earlier section of the game when we were leaving this area. And there we go. There's the barrier. Now, the ultimate upgrade for the barrier can be gotten in the next act, and you don't do a submission to get it. It's just something that you pick up and you get. So it's anticlimactic, and it doesn't involve anything like a submission, because I guess all the submissions, they wanted to contain them in the open world-esque sort of places. But since you're doing mid-range combat, the claw is an absolute beast. It's a great weapon. Yes, the reload is probably the slowest reload in the game, but again, you get so much ammunition with it that you have to get over excessive reloading on that and just commit to not firing as much, because you get a ton of ammunition. And the big attraction for me with that weapon is how fast you can fire when you get an active reload. So I do reload a lot, even though I know that it's taking a long time, but getting an active reload with the faster speed bonus for the bullets is just, what's that called? think the rate of fire, I'm sorry, rate of fire. Rate of fire is just absolutely spectacular. But I decided to play this in a more traditional sort of way and just do the traditional combat because I'm sort of a traditional man. Then we're going to get on out of here. I still have the Relic GL launcher. Anyway, this enemy over here was hiding from me the whole time. I'm not sure. I don't think he's like a surprise enemy that just spawns when you get up there. I think he honestly got stuck over there. So, had I got killed there, I would be disappointed because the checkpoint is right here. And I'm going to rush this brute really quickly. So when I approach him, I'm going to activate stim, and I'm going to grenade tag him a single time. No, I'm sorry. I don't activate stim until after I plant the first grenade. So I run up to him, I flash freeze him, and then I put a grenade on him, then I activate stim, and then activating stim will immune you from getting killed from the first detonation of the first frag grenade, and then you put a second one on, and then you roll away, and then you don't get killed, and then you can kill him. Hope that was not as complicated as I think it sounded. But the last time we did that to a brute, I don't think we had the flash freeze completely put together, and we didn't really need to have it right there. But cover over here is pretty wanting, so all of this dead area in between you and the enemies, you need to be very careful of what you're doing. You could also get killed to the propellers, so that you don't want to have that to happen. But you will be getting a couple of scions that spawn when you've killed most of the wave over here, and I think they're the Mulcher scions, so they're very dangerous, and you can get them walking to you in certain ways. Now, the way I got them to come over was they came both at the same top area that I was at, but I've had them one at the top and one at the bottom, like one up here and one closer to the hangars over to the right. And they had a sweet angle on me that put me down like a dog. So you really need to be careful of that and make sure that you have the flash if you see them and you think they might be causing you trouble. And then, of course, stim to make sure that they don't kill you in such a situation. But just wait until their gun overheats, and then go in for your shots. See how they both wound up there? That was fortunate for me. Ooh, wow. This guy's trying to grab people over there. So take advantage of the time when they mantle, because when they mantle they can't shoot. Or they don't shoot, rather. But that's it for that. That's the fight, and it's pretty good actually. It's a nice checkpoint, nice checkpoint and a nice fight. So back on to the skiff, and we're gonna head over to what I think is an optional area, but it's presented to you as something that needs to be taken care of before you proceed. So for all I know, it might not be optional, but it gives you a good amount of supplies, and you might be put off by the thought of 3 pouncers, but you only fight 2 at a time in this game, so you don't need to worry that you're fighting 3 at a time. And we're going to be doing some grenade tagging, but mainly I'm going to make sure that we leave that fight with adequate enough supplies, because after that fight you will be fighting the Snatchers ×2 and the Scions ×2. That will be the second to last fight before you fight Juvies. But anyway, you might have passed through this area before. They've put up some barricades at the end of it so you can't go through. But when you come up here, you're going to get the objective, and then yeah, that's what I thought I did. I picked up a Lancer because it's been a goddamn long time since I've used the traditional Lancer. I'll switch back when the fight's over. But ideally what I want to do is I want to grenade tag one of these and then roll away. The thing that bothers me a little bit about these particular, well, not that I want to particularize these ones, but do you see how this one's coming to the ground? That's what I want. I don't want them to continually go up on top of the tanks, because even if they're at my level, kind of, where some of the lower trucks, she still will put the grenade on the truck and not on the pouncer. So if you stay back here, I don't think they come back this far. So it's a good idea then to just hang back here and wait until they jump off, and then approach them, stick them with that grenade, and then finish them off. If there's any left, with the claw or whatever you want, and then sometimes you'll get them so that they don't even move off of the truck that they're on, which is kind of funny. But there are some frag grenades over here. It is an imperative that you leave with frag grenades, but I did want to show you one location that has a torque bow in it. So, do you remember the rocket hangar earlier in the previous video? There is a torque bow too in that area, and even if you picked it up before, it repopulates it, so it's really good actually. Okay, that's the last one finished. Alright, well, let me see what is over here. This might be a non-optional area. So there's components. Yeah, this is not optional, I don't believe. They probably won't let you go into the rocket hangar unless you do this part. So I'm going to be bringing the long shot and the torque to the snatcher fight. But I'm not going to be using the long shot. In fact, if you want to drop the long shot now, you can. I'm going to be bringing this weapon now that I'm holding, and I'm going to switch out my claw right here for the torque. So to the left up a hill, there's some bushes, and in one of the bushes there's a torque bow. And then you won't see me do this, but I go back through the I think it was the, I can't remember what it's called, but there was I can't remember, but there's like a junkyard of cars out in front of this place that I mentioned earlier. It was the Waterworks missions that I'm talking about. The second one that I did on that particular video, if you go to that video, it's where the Marxa relic is. So if I know I've given you some clues, so hopefully that will give you the idea. But it was just that there was an explosive box on one of the cars, and I did pick that up. So I was able to, I think, max out my torque. I think. But there is a torque bow on right on the area that we're going to right before the snatchers, so you can have one of those. And there's another explosive box too. I'm not sure why I wanted so many explosive boxes. Oh yes, I do know now. I thought that the ones that I grabbed earlier, the torque and that explosive box, I thought those wouldn't be replenished, but they are. So actually, you know what? Don't even worry about going to the car lot. If you want to, go for it. But we are going to be going past an area that we've already been to over here. Fortunately, there are no enemies. You remember this place, don't you? It was a pseudo stealth section, and then it had some enemies that were on turrets. Yeah. So if there's anything you need, just check out some stuff over here if you want. Pouncer fight is really easy to control because they give you a lot of areas that you can use where you don't have to worry too much about you getting killed by the quills or by any other attacks. The only problem is your teammates sometimes have a hard time staying on their 2 feet. So, make sure you've got stim in that case, and also make sure that when you see people getting grabbed, make damn sure that you get on those enemies quickly so that they'll drop your teammate. Because they'll do this thing where they'll walk to the far side of an exit area, and then you'll see them jump away. And if they jump away, that means that the game is going to fail you when they finish jumping to the other side of wherever they're jumping to. So it's a straight shot right over here, and I would highly recommend a Lancer GL for the fight, and also the torque bow. There's a boom shot too, as well as a long shot and a Marksa. There's a bunch of stuff to grab, you know, and then there's 2 more checkpoints left in this level, one right before this next fight, so make sure everything is as you'd like it. Here's the torque bow. So I only got 1 right there. I should have not picked that up because we do have a boss fight coming up in the next chapter. But then again, they might take your shit off of you, but I'm not sure what they do about that. So pull this switch. You're going to see a snatcher, but you're not going to fight it until you go down the stairs. Now, when you start this next fight, there's 2 tops of buildings that these snatchers jump on. Now, I placed priority shock traps on the tops of these buildings, and some of the time, like 50% out of 100. What am I saying? 50% out of 100? Of course it's out of 100, but these shock traps that I put here, they sometimes would not do anything for me except immediately explode. I don't know what caused them to explode either. But half of the other time when they didn't explode right away, you know, obviously I would be more happier in those cases and I wouldn't have to restart. Because one snatcher jumps onto this platform here that I'm aiming at now, and one of them jumps onto the other platform over there. To prevent them from outright, it's particularly the one that jumps down here. When you shoot this barrel, he'll stagger. So if he was about to shoot you, he's not going to kill you outright. But I've never been killed to the snatchers after they've jumped down. I've been killed to him a couple times because I was taking too long to fire the torque bow. But once they come down, they've never killed me. So this is, I would say it's a good spot. But there, like I said, there's other spots that you can take advantage of. Because if you go into any of the rooms down there, they can't get in. And you might think, well, you know, just go to the opposite side of the room if you have a problem. Yeah, you can do that, but if your teammates get grabbed, you're going to have to use either stim or, you know, run over there to save them. I'm not sure if one of them grabs one of your teammates. If you use stim, will they spit the enemy out, or your teammate out? I think there's a possibility of that happening. But I think it's just because I'm removed from things up here that I would see this where my teammates keep falling. Probably if I was down there with them, I wouldn't have that much of a problem. But as long as you can hit them quickly enough so that they drop your teammate, that's good. That's good. And then after those 2 enemies get finished off, you'll fight 2 scions. One has a mulcher and one has a boom shot. So it's a lethal pair of scions. And try to get headshots, but also realize that killing those 2 snatchers, you know, takes a bit of time, and you don't want to really risk all your progress by trying to get headshots over here. If you can play it safe, that would be better. These fucking horn winders over here, though, I swear one of them got up pretty close to me over here, and it was all I could do to save myself. I had to use hijack on him, but my teammates are fucking down. My fags of war are down. Get your asses up, shit for brains. Because guess what? I've got a hornwinder coming up here. He's signaling to me with his horn. He's trying to blow in his horn. Fuck. Look at this. This is no good right here. But I was able to hijack the first one and then pick up one of my teammates. See, I can't mantle over either, too, because it was having problems. They need to fix that. You need to be able to mantle over everything. But yeah, hijack definitely saved my skin over here. So it would be better if you were back here when those scions spawned and have something like a torque bow or a long shot. And you shouldn't have too many problems with that. Like I said, if you're looking for somewhere where you want to take your stand against those snatchers, you won't be looking for long, because there's a lot of places that you could go to, a lot of safe places. And that really should have been the last fight in the chapter, but they do make you fight a wave of juvies over here. One of the worst things I hate in this game is hearing the scream of the juvies, because every time I hear that, it's like an alarm clock in the morning that you know, like, grow to just utterly hate, and you hate the sound of it, because the sound of it means bad things, pretty much. It means that your sleep is ended and you've got to get up for the day. I just hate the sound of the juvies. I hate the juvie. I think it's an uninspired enemy, and I just hate the juvie. Fucking hate the juvie. I am going to throw a shock trap down here, see if I can get them stalled at all, but there isn't too much of a problem. Everybody's going to get taken care of. I am going to throw a grenade. I would recommend, if you see a good cluster of them, throw a grenade over there. There is a grenade on the platform, so it's right there. So you can replenish at least one of the ones that you throw. But that is it for 3-3. I will see you in the final chapter of Act 3. It will be a boss fight. Please take care.